Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Welcome to Leap Taken. I am popping on without any preamble. Hello, hello. Welcome to Leap Taken. I'm Mika. No one's here quite yet. That's okay. I didn't exactly schedule. I'm gonna have enjoy my protein shake. Mm, or I should say smoothie. I'm trying to. I've never was. I don't want to say I never. I'm not really a big smoothie person, or I hadn't been, and I'm making myself enjoy smoothies. I'm not really. I thought about it. It's like I don't. I think because I'm lactose intolerant, I shy away from like milkshakes and stuff like that. So if you like milkshakes and all that sort of stuff, this probably seems normal, but for me, it's something. The consistency in drinking a blended drink like this is something I think I kind of had to get used to. Drinking like lattes and frappes and stuff like that got me used to drinking stuff like that. It's so weird, right? Hi, good afternoon, Insky. Mm, but this is a protein smoothie. I have got protein has become like I am very fixated, and it's working for me because I had some just well, one, I found out I didn't even understand the concept of how much protein I need to be getting. Women in general. Hi, Coco Lux. I realized I didn't like. You don't know what you don't know, and the problem is in the media, people and advertisements, people are telling you things. But my doctor, hey Dylan, told me ideally, she gave me like a range. I don't want to get into this because that's like a health conversation, and I don't know about everybody else, but like for a woman my age, she was telling me I should be aiming for a certain amount of protein in a day, and ideally, you want to get like 40 grams of that protein like within an earlier part of the day. So protein smoothies have been a way to do it. I eat the food too, but it's a thing. And I've become plant based again for health reasons as well. It's working out. I realize I am like on month three of being plant based. So pescatarian esque. And I remember talking about like, oh, I like to enjoy, I enjoy eating meat, but I have noticed some things along with like supplements and just doing like just natural remedies that my doctor recommended. So they didn't immediately give me a script for some drugs or something. um, that is actually working. I feel more myself. Yeah, I feel more myself. Also, you started taking vitamin D gummies. Oh my God. People think, oh, you're in Arizona, it's the sun. You, most people are deprived of vitamin D. And the more melanin, in my case, you have in your skin is actually harder, believe it or not, to absorb enough. So I take vitamin D also. I'm taking quite a few supplements, magnesium, all the things that they really they're. And here's the thing: I'm not just take. I used to think people took this stuff and it didn't work. Like you're just peeing it out. Take your vitamin. Yes, B12 was another one. I found out that I need to be taking iron supplements in general because of just the type of it's hereditary, my blood type and everything, and just some of the issues that we seem to have in within my bloodline. So I may always be iron deficient. So I have to take a supplement. Gratefully, I don't have to take that thing every day. Iron supplements are the worst. They're disgusting. They can, bind you if you're not careful. So I take a fiber supplement. I try to get more fiber. I have to be so intentional now. And actually, this is a perfect segue into the book recs because I'm going to talk about all the books that I recommend. If you were coming into witchcraft now, if it was me, this is what I would tell me to you to read. Um, but a lot of all of this has to do with your mindset. So I have found there's different types of people. Sometimes in casual, because I don't like to talk about diet, because it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle. This is how I have to be. I think adults have a problem, some, with the fact that you can't keep doing the same things you've always done. At some point, there has to be evolution. There has to be some evolve. You have to also remember that who you're not mentally and physically the same person you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. My therapist, I know she isn't a doctor, but she told me that a person can't really meet their vitamin D levels each day, so you have to take supplements. It's really difficult in our modern society. I agree. I've been to two separate people in two separate divisions of my doctor's office. What do you mean I can't pull all nighters anymore? Exactly me at 30. It starts then. I remember the switch. Oh, I remember that switch. I remember something happening and I was up all night and I was like early 30s and I was like, why am I not getting better? Like the morning came and I was like, oh, my head hurts. I had a severe headache. I drank and I was like, what is happening? Like, oh, I must be coming down with something. I was just so not understanding. Heifer, you getting old. Like you can't do this anymore. In my 20s, I could. I could work at night. I waitress like at nightclub. Like I did all that sort of stuff or late night spots like bar and grill type restaurants. And then and with kids, because I had my daughter at 22. So like I hustled. I was out there. I was, I'm sometimes just, hanging out, but also I would, be up all night. I hit my early 30s and I started feeling like, what's this thing? Headache, it was a hangover. And it took me longer to feel better. And I didn't understand what I thought I was coming down with something. I didn't like drink like that into the night all the time, but I remember this one time. I think this is one of the last times I did that on that scale because it took so long to recover. Fast forward years later, and at this point, like I'm married to the second husband. I think we were it was like New Year's or something. Yeah, I think it was New Year's Eve. And we were invited someplace and we had a time. And I was living in South Florida, so I was around a lot of Cubans and a lot of other people. To kill it, it was an interesting crowd. And they're like, oh, you gotta try this, you gotta try this. It's like, oh no, 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 no. I'm in my 40s and that husband was like 7 years older than me. It took me out. I might as well have. It took me a weekend to recover from the New Year's Eve situation. Like I could not pull it together. And yes, I hydrated. And yes, I ate food. Like I could. My body. I'm like, oh my god. Like this. I can never do that again. I'm 26 and I can pull an all nighter, but it's not enjoyable as it was. No, no, it's my I'm watching my daughter now. She works all night because she's a nurse. She's on the night shift. And it's like it's whatever. Like her schedule changes all the time. So she's in her 20s. She's handling it. But I told her, I said, you might have to shift some things because I remember she tried to do the opposite thing. It was like not this summer, last year. Her friends were in town and they went out of town and they went to this like convention thing. They don't work at night, so she was up. She barely slept. By the time my sweet baby girl came home and they drove to LA. She was the driver. I said, "You are damn near manic." Like she was not herself. She is a very even, calm kind of person. She gets excited about things, but for the most part, she's pretty neutral. Um, it was how fast she was talking that was the giveaway when she came home. She's telling me about it. I was like, oh, she's excited. I was like, no, this is not excitement. This is something else. And I was like, okay, sweet baby girl, go take a shower. And I just sat and I treated her like I did when she was a toddler. I would do this thing where I would just take my finger and I just rub around just here very gently. And she was like, what are you doing? You trying to treat me like a little kid? I was like, no, no, no. I was like, you just seem like you need to relax. So I'm just sitting next to her. She's talking and I'm just like doing like this, just quietly, not talking. And I saw her relax, just like she did when she was a toddler. And I put her to bed. She needed to sleep. She couldn't handle it. Was several days. It was like a weekend trip. However, I feel like I want to do more things at night. Oh, my sister won't allow me to change to night shift. Okay. there is something to be said for the night shift. I get it because I remember, and I worked from home. I did tech support years ago, and I worked at night overnights, and it was to start to switch that switch part, that transition is brutal because you do want to fall asleep. You're exhausted, and also there is nothing in modern day society that is conducive to working at night unless you live like in a major city. I think, but your friends, your family, they're all out to get you. Like nobody's gonna. They're all like, oh, don't you want to rest your eyes? And they all go to sleep. Like they just, yeah. But I did it, and there were perks, especially as for some of us who are practitioners. I felt like the witching hour became some of. I got some of my most potent, powerful spells done in the middle of the night. So like, and it was at night, so sometimes I didn't have to deal with anybody, take calls or emails or anything like that. So I had time in between, so I would be in my office craft room even then, and I could work some spells. And I could tell you one of my biggest spells I remember working during that time was a move um, to Florida because I was living. Yeah, we were not living in Florida at that time, but I didn't want to leave Florida, and we had moved to Tennessee. Prior to living in Tennessee, I was living in Florida, and I felt like we kept moving away from it. And I wanted to live. I liked the beach lifestyle. I love living near the beach. I love living near the water. Taking care of someone pulls the reins on freedom to try new things. Yes, it does. But oh yeah, I really wanted that lifestyle by the water, and I craved it, and I knew it was the right thing. I also had like some new things I wanted to try manifesting. Like I hated sharing a bathroom with a boy. Like I grew up in a all girl household, and even though this at this point my second marriage, we had been married for a while. One thing I hate, I don't like sharing a bathroom with a boy. I wanted my own bathroom, so I was like, is it possible to have two master suites? And I found a house where I was living, but I didn't want to live there. I wanted to live in Florida, so I manifested that. Do you know? Not only did I end up, these spells were very niche. I found a house in Florida, so we moved, and it had two master bathrooms. And I said, you know what? That's magic. That is magic. Do you know how uncommon that is? That is not like some, $1 million mansion or something, or some like really expensive place. I mean, it was expensive, but still. Now that I think about it, it was expensive. That place, it wasn't like celebrity worthy $1 million home, but we lived in Boca Raton, Florida. So if you know that, that's expensive. I got to remember to get the smoothie down. But let's get into these books. That's cool. So funny. Yeah, let's get into these books and shift our mindset. There is a method behind my madness with every book recommendation. I've given book recommendations for newbie witches, and then we're going to talk about my new Oracle deck book later. There is a reason. I'm going to tell you why. I'm not just going to randomly, oh, this is a good book, and that's it. The magical hand waves, yes. Spirit hands. Takes a new meaning to that. Okay, so let me seriously though, I'm going to get into this. So, and my rationale, because it's not what everybody else thinks. I watch videos and I see people talk about that sort of stuff, and I'm like, okay, that's great, but I know how my brain thinks, and I'm a bit of a little weirdo, so I'm going to speak weirdo. Me. Okay, so if you are someone coming and newbie or just wanting to build a practice, let's say you've been looking around, you've been kind of dibble dabbling in magic as well. So you don't have to be new. You could have been into this and been open to it, but you know what I'm saying. You're just still in the stages of just reading and looking into it. You haven't gotten anything further. These books, which by the way, there's going to be 7 books that I'm going to recommend for different reasons. Spoiler. Here's why. I have talked about this book in the past. The cover, if you buy this off of Amazon, the links are in the description for these books. I can't tell you enough about this book. Let me tell you why this one stays. This book stays as a recommendation. So they take a more methodical, darn near scientific approach to explaining some of the things like building, how to build energy and encode it into something. I still use this language to this day. This book was copyright 2016, by the way. When she talks about building spiritual development, psychic spell work, psychic development, I have read other books about psychic development. There's a popular one. I don't want to get into that too much. I read that, and I actually read it in a like a my coven in a book club. And I had so many issues with that book. I did not like it, and I wouldn't recommend it because I don't like. I felt like it was mansplained through the whole book, and I didn't like that. It's one I'm already open to knowledge, but just it just felt like did the author think I was an idiot? Like I didn't like the book. I didn't like the tone. This is a different thing. I feel like this book is something you can really learn from, in a way that isn't just telling you how to do a spell, but kind of having you develop a sense of understanding on how you think that spell might be actually working. And explains types of magic, like imitative magic, um, love magic spells, advanced defensive magic, things like that. I think one of the things that really stood out to me when I first read this book, and I've read this book more than once, I've got like highlighted notes and things like that, is it really spoke to someone who doesn't just want the woo woo. Especially if you're first coming into this, you kind of need some form of just by faith. You want to have an understanding, like, so how exactly is this working? And there's exercises at the end of each chapter, which I think further helps with understanding. It helps you build a ritual as well. There are templates in this book. If you didn't understand how to build a ritual, more about that in a different book. Um, Discovering affinities. I love that. Like, what's your element? Winning element. There's an elemental activity. Like, there's just so many things that take you out of a lot of the there's a lot of different books I talk about that discuss witchcraft, and I feel like a lot of those are it's a lot of flowery language, it's a lot of woo woo, it's very surface level. And this one appears to take this almost like a textbook type approach to understanding, and it's it's so well laid out. It's not a boring book, but it does encourage you to think and not just be told about just imagine this or something like that. It gets technical. Listen to this, something I highlighted. This is under spiritual development. Our spirituality is directly linked to our intent, setting the tone and the limits of our magic. Excuse me, and the limits for our magic. Intent can be summed up as what's in your heart, the true nature of your desires and beliefs. These desires and beliefs manifest as our magical goals, reflecting what the spirit hopes to achieve, and magic is only as good as the intent behind it. And it goes on. And I highlighted that because I think that, like, when people think about intent, like, this book is giving more definition behind words as opposed to just, like I said, surface level, which sometimes surface level is okay because you don't want to be overwhelmed. But again, this book is about personalize your magic and kickstart your craft. It's for the intention of kind of advancing the craft, to get out of that surface level approach to magic. Um, yeah, paradoxes to ponder, togetherness and separation. I love that section. Like, there's just so many. I love the section specifically on energy encoding in here. Psychic spell work. They're talking about like ESP, for natural magic. Exercises that develop. I can't overstate how just really in depth this book is. Divination secrets and strategies for success. So this is a book, I think, if you're wanting to get more serious about your magic, about understanding it, and even the sectional rules to break. This is something that you can read to help build a foundation. It doesn't speak in the way, like I said, surface level books on witchcraft that I find do. It's there's no pretty pictures, and yeah, there's lots of opportunity for you to understand some of these principles that maybe more someone who's experienced takes for granted. But if you're new, or if you've been studying but you've never like conceptualize these phrasings like intent, and what does it mean to raise energy, and what how okay, so how do I take the energy I raise and put it into something, or the idea of even sex magic. So okay, so we get to the big O, or yeah, I get to that point. So how is that turning into magic? Like what this is a great, and they're not talking necessarily about sex magic, but the concepts and the understanding of energy raising and encoding and so forth, that's in here, and this builds to me a better understanding so you can build a foundation for your witchcraft. So this is my number one pick. On that vein, I wish books will go into the etymological origins of words, but I know that really isn't a lot of people's interest. You know, if I wrote a book that would include that to my allow, okay, I get that. I feel like that's a slippery slope because there's a lot of people who kind of, I don't know if you've ever seen certain YouTube videos. I've seen those, or even on Instagram. Not so much, yeah, TikTok as well. Well, people kind of like start to break things down to the point where it's like, hold on, you're just making it up. Like, there's actually root meanings. When I homeschooled my kids, one of the things that we taught, I actually, especially my daughter, because I knew she was going in the medical field, is I gave her a Latin course. She took a Latin course that I, facilitated. So she does that course to this day. It helped her through like medical or nursing school. It helped her get through that because she understands the root meanings of words. So the actual root meanings, not, the made up ones that some people do. And I just think that a lot of people are not really open to the fully like the true root. Does that make sense? I'm not trying to be funny, but you know what I mean? Like, I think people make it up. I think some people are making it up. Okay. Book two that I think, again, I've talked about this before, Energy Essentials for Witches and Spellcasters by Maya Ohm. Okay. So you got to understanding, she's gonna, in this book, by Melanie Marquise, she does talk about like creating spells and things like that, and there's a template. This whole book is going to help you understand deeper. Now that we have an understanding about all of the, the themes around witchcraft, we can talk about spell work now, casting spells with this one. This little book is very powerful. So this one gives examples. It talks about raising energy, how to raise energy and so forth, what to do with that energy once you raised it and so forth. Also, how to write spells. Yeah, how to write spells and different types of spells that you can write, because there's not one way. Writing a simple spell or perpetual spell, because what if I have a spell where um you need it to keep happening? How to read, she's walking you through process of like rewriting a spell, like a money spell. She'll give you an example, what's wrong with this or what can be changed about it. This is like a workbook. This is like getting into the, to me, the education and the understanding of spell work. It's not a very long book. You can get into this really quickly and take a lot away from this. She gives some examples in the beginning about her own story. It's, again, it's barely 200 pages. It's a quick read, but it's a lot of good information. She's not necessarily she's getting you to understand, for instance, a spell that says, oh, get 5 green candles, these like about 10 herbs and all this stuff. And she's not saying that you can't have all these things. She's just trying to get you to understand, why do you need 10 green candles? Why wouldn't one suffice? Now, it's another thing if each candle is assigned a different thing. You know what I mean? Like, just opening, a lot of times you see a spell in a book and you're open to doing it. It's like, oh, that might fit my needs. I might want to do that. But It doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, why do I need the same color candles, so many of them? Unless there's a direct meaning to that. Like, are they encoded with a different type of energy? Are they like supposed to work in tandem? Is there some sort of thing, or we're just lighting up the same candle multiple times? Like, she breaks that down, and also helps you to word your spells, and just like I said, um, everything from charging a candle to directing energy. So this gets more into the nitty gritty. This one helps you conceptualize and understand, and does give some templates to do it. This one takes those themes and just hyper focuses on energy and spells. These are perfect to get started. I'm wondering if you're going to mention the Unspelled book. I am not. I gotta look into that. I don't know what that a book is actually. I know. I do. I don't. I haven't read it. So now that you said, I'll look it up. All right. So we built our foundation. So you want to do witchcraft. So you were now talking about how to write spells, the concept of energy. So you're getting into it. So you're like, oh, okay, that's great. Those to me, the basic foundations. To be a witch is to cast a spell in my book. I don't want to fight. On some level, I'm not saying you need all the props, but are you not casting spells? What are we doing then, right? Okay. So now that you've done all that, you're going to want to record this stuff, right? You're going to want to write some stuff down. Modern Witchcraft Grimoire, your complete guide to creating your own book of shadows. A lot of people have no idea what to put in their book of shadows. I haven't read it, bought it, but it's kind of like book two when you list. Okay. I do think some of us need guidance. And even if you don't think you do, let me tell you something. I've made this mistake of thinking, one, my book should look aged like it was on a movie set of like Practical Magic or Charm. And I still love that kind of stuff, by the way. I like the age pages. I do love that. Um, but that's not the only book of shadows that exists, or grimoire. Um, that it has to be perfect. Some people are uncomfortable with seeing blank pages and feeling, especially like me, I was say, oh, I don't love my handwriting. Um, so you don't want to write on it because it looks like scribbly notes and it doesn't look good. Or you're not, you don't know how to, draw, or you don't feel like you're artsy enough to carry it out. Get this book. Get this book. It helps because it helps you to understand the layout of the book. Once you're kind of entranced, to me, reading this book and understanding how I could lay out my book, what I can include in it, I kind of got off the idea of the look and just start thinking about, wait, I kind of want to build this because I want this information. I want to be able to look at this. I want to research this and look into this and have this at my fingertips. Um, this is really good on how to like really lay it out, where to begin. And they do a really thorough understanding. Well, you need everything that they're talking about. No, you don't have to model exactly as they tell you. And they're not telling you to do that, but I do think it's something to be said for to kind of heal heal this thing of it has to look perfect. It has to look like something straight off of a movie set. And instead you kind of just get enchanted with all the things you could put in here. Um, this helped break that spell for me that I kind of put on myself of perfectionism, and it has to look perfect. And that's why when I share my grimoire updates videos, I used to think, oh, these look like a little kid did it. Like this is like something in a art project a 6 year old did, and maybe it does. I don't care. It brought me joy, and I wanted to capture this information and record it. And if that's what my abilities look like, but that's me, it's my signature. Now, some of us are much more, have they've honed their skills of art and they can do that. And I love looking at stuff like that. By the way, if you ever wanted to know, YouTube, I like doing grimoire flip throughs. I love seeing some of these beautiful books. And I also love seeing the ones where it's just a spiral notebook and they're sharing it. And it doesn't look, as artsy as someone else's, but you will need some help if you're brand new. And if you've never had a grimoire of any sorts, I think you're going to need some help with organizing because that alone is incredibly overwhelming when you first start. a book like this can help a lot. Have messed us up. I definitely believe movies have messed us up as a community. Our magical record keeping books must look old. Her Molly, I cannot remember her last name. The Art Witch here on YouTube. She has a published book as well. Um, I love her. I watched her many years ago. I started watching her channel, and I remember watching a video, and she said that this was here. I don't even know if I was. Yeah, I think I was on YouTube at that point, but like maybe in the beginning. Molly Roberts, yes. And I remember she said that this thing that we have, that all our books have to look old and ancient and worn and, tea stained, and there is something for that. Don't get me wrong, I love those books. I think we all do have a secret, we all kind of want that book, but at the same time, I also like bright colors. I like the color pink, and I like, cutesy stuff. Rock Your Grimoire videos top tier. Yes, I love all that stuff. I like sometimes the page to just be imagery and a few words, and other times I want to write, and I want to write out all this stuff. And there's room for all of that. Okay. So we're building our foundation. We're understanding the concept of energy, which is essential to witchcraft. I feel like that's missed. That's why I'm harping on it. We're understanding energy, raising energy, directing energy, grounding energy, all that sort of stuff. And we need a place to write it all down. So we have a book to help us guide and kind of create some sort of a framework. And by the way, the first book that you create might not be your only book. That might be great. And you'll probably always love it because it's like, oh, when I was baby witch, I did that. I have one like that. Where I'm honestly impressed some of the stuff that I put in there. So we got that down. So what's next? Okay, so I'm speaking of my own evolution and how I've worked. So rituals. I cannot tell you, one of the things that I was so confused about when I first started practicing witchcraft, and I would have called myself Wiccan at this stage. Um, I did not understand what the difference between spell and ritual. And listen, it wasn't like it is now. There was not so many resources. There was not so much public understanding. It was out in the open a little bit more, but not like today. So, know that. But rituals and goddess work and all of that sort of stuff was a little, I didn't really get it. I was like, well, if I'm doing a spell, and people would use spell and ritual interchangeably. Also, I'm seeing people do that today. Side note, I notice people, um, yeah, and people who don't even call themselves witches will call something a ritual. And it's like, oh, that looks like that's a ritual. I was like, actually, it looks like a spell. It doesn't look like a ritual, but carry on. Moving on. This book, African, now again, these are my breaks based on if I was coming into it. This might not make sense to you if you don't, this doesn't jive with you. But this book is like a history lesson, also, a history book and understanding history as well of certain spirits or people who were living and become deified. Abriola Adams. I love this book. The reason I love this is because she is basically creating a practice of ritual. Each section or chapter and things like that, you're moving to a certain level in the book, hence African goddess initiation. The reason I like this book is because the information and content, stellar, grade A. Everyone should learn. I don't think this is something only for if you're of African descent, although she lets you know when she wrote this book, that's basically who she had in mind for them to learn. But I don't think that you can't read this. You shouldn't read it if you're not of African descent, because I think it's a lot of history in this book as well. But anyway, the thing that I like that she does is at the end, there is a practice, there is an activity, but it's ritualized. So you're building ritual for someone who is not accustomed to that. In my OG BOS, I wrote an intro start like Dear Child in the old font. I was 14. I cringe at this man. Yeah, I would. Dear Child. This is great for building ritual. That was something I didn't realize was going to be important for me and the way my personality is, and for this all to kind of connect, making time, taking time. So if you were reading this book, automatically you're going to be able to kind of begin to ritualize and add more rituals to your practice. She's going to help you like building an altar, all of that sort of stuff. This is going to swoop in and kind of the living practice, the physical practice. I think, yeah, you read this, but then you go do something. Now, every section, every chapter might not resonate with you, but I think if, as far as the activities, but I think that overall, you can build a practice of just being more considerate to ritual in your practice. And when you're done, you can obviously keep some of these things, but at least you'll have a routine of a ritual, a routine of ritual of doing rituals. If you're taking the time to do this kind of like, be consistent when you're following the book. I think this is a perfect book for that. There's a lot of other things to learn from this as well, especially um, working with goddess energy. That was also something that I struggled with. I didn't want to work with any sort of deities, the concept of deities, all that sort of stuff. I really was turned off from it because I love the section on Medusa. So there's all types of like, I learned so much, but like just about different goddesses that I hadn't been familiar with. Mami Wada, this is a more familiar one. And there's a oracle deck that she created that sort of accompanies the book as well. So that's something if you want to look into that. But this to me helps build ritual. This is what I love about that. That's why I suggest that book. You kind of get in a mindset. That was really something I struggled with. And oh, I went to when coming up, I went to a Pentecostal church. Of course, in any church, there's rituals. There's the entire act process of church is kind of like there's rituals to how you do things. But I think my favorite thing was like the communion thing for two reasons. I I think I like rituals. I like the pomp and circumstance. I like the ceremonial aspects. Um, After a while in my practice, I would understand. No, you do like that. You do like to kind of put on a little bit of a show, for yourself and the spirits. But I do like that. So I like that, and I also really like getting that little cracker and that juice because I was perpetually hungry as a child. I remember refusing to work with any deities but Poseidon. Kept popping in my head, and it took 5 years. I started working with him. It was a very slow process for me. Quite frankly, I didn't really start working like hands on. Like I felt like I had been okay. So there's working with, and then there's acknowledging. So acknowledging, yes, I had Hathor, goddess Hathor, had reached out to me, and the symbolism was going crazy. So I did research of understanding, but I didn't like do any work where I petitioned and called on her regularly. It was more from like an academic, almost like approach, even though she personally was reaching out to me. Then, many years later, not that long ago, I started working with Hecate, and I heard someone talking about this working with Hecate recently, and they said that they had been working with the Christian gods, so they were used to prayer and hoping they were heard and that their prayers were answered. And then they started working with Hecate, and it was like, oh wait, not only I'm being acknowledged, one, and answered, and that was very off scary if you're not used to that wait. So this isn't just some theoretical just in my head fantasy thing that I'm really hoping is real. This goddess is really, answering and showing up for me in ways that are very clear. It's from what I asked, and it's coming from her. She's got her signature on it, just in case there were any doubts. So that's the difference that I've also noticed as well. And I spent so many years decolonizing and dechristifying, dechristifying, dechristifying my understanding of spirituality. That is why I was kind of I naturally, once I got into Wicca and I understand about hoodoo and voodoo, and I again, I approach things probably more academically. I took religious courses when I was in college. Like I really wanted to understand. I'm one of those people. I have got to understand foundationally before I can commit. And one of the things about hoodoo specifically is there is this, you really can't escape the Christ. And there's an acceptance of other things and other energies, but the prayers are always to Christ or God, or to Jesus. And I don't want that. I don't want to work with that. I don't um yeah, I don't want to, I'm trying to find it, I don't connect with that type of, I feel like that's a trickster god. This is just my thoughts. I've thought about this, and I'm not saying that to be funny. I do believe the Christian God is a trickster God. I believe all the entities that have been associated with it um, are some variation of trickster energy, and I just it's just not on the surface enough. Like I don't feel like people, for those who think like me, they understand that, but I still see some of them still work with that energy, and I'm not really like I don't. Maybe it's the Aries in me. I'm very direct and straightforward and blunt, and I like don't F with me like that. Like if I'm praying to you and I'm doing all the things, like don't hit me on the back end with some BS, and that's my answer prayer. I don't know. I get mad. And it's like the pettiness in this God. And I'm not picking on a religion because I don't believe in only one deity. And I believe in deities, one God or one goddess. That's not what I subscribe to. So I can critique like I would anybody else, any of these other entities as well. So it's not like a personal attack on Christianity. I'm talking how I feel about that particular deity. In the same way, Santa Morte, I wanted to work with this energy of Santa Morte, and I set up an altar. I talked about this before, and I read some books and I watched some videos, and I wanted to have a build her into my practice and work with her. And I had a experience with her. It's like more like lucid dreaming. Um, and basically, she pushed me away and said, "No, you don't belong here." And I respected that. I didn't see that as a challenge or it's a trial that she wants me to prove myself. And I feel like some other deities, maybe that's a thing. You're not for me if that's who you are, because I'm not doing all that. What are your thoughts on Jesus, as you feel like the Christian God is a trickster? The concept of Jesus. I get the appeal. I get the appeal because it's like, oh, he hung with the whores and the beggars and all that sort of stuff. And I think that's great, but I just kind of feel like, it's given the same energy of like a rich celebrity dad and his kid wants to be humble. Like Jaden Smith. Like Will Smith is the Christian God, Jaden Smith. Jaden Smith does these wonderful things, but at the same time, it's like, I mean, when you're ready to wrap this up, you can go home and live the lux life with your dad. Like, not saying that you will or you won't. I'm just saying, it's just I I don't. I'm not interested. You still got ties to him. You still rock with him. And at the end of the day, if it's down to me and it's down to him, you gonna choose him over me. That's how I feel. Um, Next book. So we got our magical record keeping. We're understanding rituals a little bit more. We're building our own. We're using this book as sort of a tool to work with and conceptualize, like working with other deities and goddesses, and just broadening a little bit more in a way that maybe you're not accustomed to. And it's a very gentle approach. Part you feel like you're learning about history, so it's not essentially like it's woo woo, and then it's like, oh, it's more like self help. Let's empower ourselves. Let's build ourselves up. Let's be in touch with all aspects, the dark feminine. Let's, our sensuality, sexuality, all of that stuff, our healing, all of that. So we're there. So, okay, so we got all this knowledge, but okay, how do we approach this on an everyday basis? Like, how do I function every day? Boom. Deborah Blake's Everyday Witchcraft, Making Time for Spirit in a Too Busy World. I don't know if you know, but I love this woman dearly. Deborah Blake, I love her writing. I've been following, I realize I've been into her work for a very long time. So this is a great practical approach. Now, Deborah Blake is Wiccan. So she's going to write with the Wiccan slant, but quite frankly, most of the books on witchcraft that you find have a Wiccan bit to them, whether they want to admit it or not. And I don't think Wicca is bad. I don't think Wicca is um people talk about it like it's just a stepping stone into something more. And I think that's being sort of disrespectful to people who are lifelong Wiccan. Like they, once they made that commitment, they stayed Wiccan. It wasn't just a thing and they moved on to something else. And they feel fulfilled and they still learn and understand other paths and other magic systems and things of that nature. Just, how to work magic differently than maybe what they're doing. It doesn't mean that you're ignorant of all that, but this is what they foundationally are called to and they feel like it's right for them. So I used to be Wiccan, but I don't necessarily. Yeah, at some point, I wouldn't even. I don't want to use the word evolve from Wicca because that's again that sounds disrespectful. It's more like I just felt called to something else. I felt called to something else. But anyway, living your best magical and mundane life, witchcraft in the modern world. These are the chapter titles: The Everyday Witch, Making Time for Spirit in a Too Busy World, Walking Your Talk in Everyday Life, A Simple Pagan Practice, Pagan. Um, and then she talks about like with a little help from my friend. So it's like this is where you're going to talk about, excuse me, dealing with other people in your experience, your everyday existence, like covens, and I believe she talks about like familiars and stuff like that. Oh no, that's the next session: fur, feather, and fang, pets and familiars. So if you want to get into that sort of the part of the craft, so you're talking about now, kind of mixing the everyday and the mundane. You got all this knowledge, but like, how do I go every day? How do I put all this into some sort of like thing where this becomes my lifestyle? I think this is a great book to give you some ideas. You don't need to do everything that she tells you to do, but based on your understanding and what you've learned, and you want to sort of assimilate this into your life so this becomes who you are. I think this book is helpful. She talks about the Wheel of the Year in here, not going into some crazy long detail about it, but just practical sense and even rituals and things like that to celebrate the turn of the year, the Wheel of the Year, the Sabbats. Which is helpful. I'm someone that's built into my practice. Working with nature somewhat, every day, all that sort of stuff. And she writes in a very approachable way. So this one, I wouldn't start here because I feel like you need to build something up, and then this makes more sense. So Everyday Witchcraft by Deborah Blake is a good one for kind of okay, stepping back and all this wonderful stuff that you read, and you need to take a practical approach. On that vein, so all this knowledge, you're walking your talk, you're living, you're trying to live this magical life. You are witch. There's some fears that a lot of us still carry around witchcraft, right? There are some things about spirit, working with ancestors and all that sort of stuff that I think a lot of us, I know I did, I needed to address before I could really break that last barrier to being full witch. And that's where I think this book comes in. I've recommended this before. Magical Mediumship by Daniel Dion, right? Anyway, um, this really helps. One, if you believe you're a psychic medium of some sorts, you should read her book. But it's not that I never actually believed I was a psychic man. I didn't even tell anybody I was psychic. I wouldn't necessarily identify that way. Um, Although I have psychic gifts, but I've never, I don't know. I always think a psychic is like, that's another conversation. But anyway, um, but like just working with ancestors and talking to spirits and and all that sort of stuff. I have to go to class. Is about to start talking. Okay, thanks, Dylan. See you. Good luck with class. But Magical Mediumship for me was just one of those books where it helped that for me to kind of confront that residual fear around death and is it real? What's real? What's not? Or my belief in it? Afterlife, and just kind of coming to terms with all that. What you kind of need to do if you think you're talking to spirits. Where do you think these spirits exist? What are they on a certain plane? Or like, do you? What are your thoughts? And it helps. This book kind of helped me confront that. Um, as from mediumship point of view. Um, there's a lot of other information in here, but it was really just the explanations and just making me think differently about my thought, making me confront my thoughts on death and what happens after death, and all that sort of stuff, and soul alignment, all that. This is a really deeper book as well. This is not surface level. Make contact with your beloved dead for personal transformation and powerful magic. This is not like I wouldn't. This is. There's a reason I'm going in this order. I think this ties up. It did for me a lot of those loose ends that I didn't realize I still had about my fear of death, which is silly because we're all going to die. Also, how are you afraid and you're trying to talk and petition the dead to aid in your spells and things like that? Like it was just, yeah, I had to have my own meeting of the mind moment and, reconciling all that. That book was super helpful with that. Also, for a lot of us, part of our witchcraft is working with ancestors, working, getting into the medium arena, the mediumship. Um, and this book can kind of help you do it because if that's something that you always thought was there, this can kind of bring that out a little bit more. And maybe that's something you hadn't really realized. This is a good book for that as well. But I think general understanding of like working divination and you're intentionally trying to talk with spirit people, spirit meaning in the mix of that, people who walk this earth before, they're passed on spirit. I think this is a great guide for that. And again, for a lot of us, that's part of our practice. That is part of our practice. Even if it scares us a little bit, once you start talking about energy and you're sort of tapped in, you you're open. And even if you weren't intentional about reaching out to spirit or to the ant, they can now that you've expanded your mind and you're open in a ritual or something like that, guess what's going to happen? They may come to you. Most times, that's exactly for a lot of people that I found. They weren't seeking; they were found. It's through dreams. It's lucid dreamings. It's the thing with the corner, at the corner of your eye, you see something, you hear something, a certain scent. It's starting. And it can be very scary even if you are open because you've been studying, you've been practicing, but this is real. Like this is on movie level real. Like, wait, this is not special effects. I know what I smell. I smell this cologne that my grandmother used to wear. And how is that possible? Because no one's in the room with me. And I know I didn't spray that cologne or that perfume or whatever. So It's that sort of thing. And then like you can feel them, like you smell and you sense, so your other senses are engaged. This book kind of goes into all of that sort of stuff to help you understand. Hi, Leslie. Hi. Good afternoon. Leslie. I like that name. But yeah, that book really helps you to understand a little bit more about kind of wrapping your mind around that sort of stuff. And once you do, okay, hey, if they're making, can we forge like some sort of bond or relationship? Can you help me in the living world? Is there something I can do for you? And do you want me to, leave offerings, that sort of stuff, how to engage those um, relationships and all that sort of stuff. I don't people and it won't be for everybody. But I think if you're also struggling with the scary parts of just thinking, not like thinking beyond surface level about what spirits are, and ancestor veneration, and them actually answering you, that kind of scares you a little bit, get this book. Okay, so we're on the last book. So we talked about breaking the last of the fears around, death, and actually welcoming in kind of this your maybe psychic medium abilities, and how to use that, how to navigate that, right? Oh, I'm glad. Thank you. This is a good one. All right. So we're working backwards. So everyday witchcraft. So you've got all this stuff in your head. You've read all these books. How do I do this daily? Like how do I live magically? How do I start infusing all this sort of stuff? This is a great reference for that. Ritual, opening your mind to the concept of deities, a deity, a goddess, and so much of religion is very male centered, male focused. It all starts with the father, where that doesn't, resonate anymore, because there's a deeper understanding. And then you're building ritual, because every chapter or section has this activity, and you start to build a practice of ritual. For some of us, we've observed, but we haven't practiced ritual. This is a great African goddess initiation, in my opinion. It's one of those books that can help you kind of get into the idea and the concept. Notice I'm not talking about full moon, new moon, all that. Hold on. You need to wrap your mind around it. This is a guide to kind of help you with getting into that. If you work this book from beginning to end, it's helpful. It can kind of get you there. But working backwards, before you get to that, where are you going to be writing all this stuff down? Modern Witchcraft Grimoire is a book to help you write, like organize your grimoire, your magical record keeping, so that all these things that you're learning, that you want to jot down, these epiphanies, these dreams, all this sort of stuff, spells and the rituals, you have a place to put it. This book will help you decide, do you want a bound book? Do you want a spiral notebook? Like, it's the practical pieces um, of making a decision on what do you want? How do you want this set up? And mind you, you can start one thing. You might have more than one book, like me, for different things. Something just for goddess, something just for a commonplace magical notebook for when you're reading books and you want to jot down, the activities and notes there. This is something that kind of gets your brain thinking about that without getting overwhelmed, and kind of organizing, so that you're not just thinking about it, you do it. How do you write spells? How do you raise energy? How do you direct energy? This book hyper focuses on those things, which are, it's small, it's a little book, but it has a lot of details that's going to help you with that. This is where we help to build our foundation, the Witch's Bag of Tricks. This book helps conceptualize terms that are thrown around, um, like intention and the word energy. So before we can get here, let's talk about this one, because this one goes in almost like I said, a technical type of understanding of these concepts. So for the final book, we're feeling pretty good. We've got we built something here. We've been studying, and I like the order that I'm telling you to go in, by the way. Or concurrently, maybe like me, sometimes you read more than one book at the same time. All right. Now, this is a newer edition. I had talked about this, but African American magic. So, again, I am me and I am African American. So, I'm going to tell you from my perspective. There may be other books. I'm going to do this again, but I'm going to do something that's maybe if you're not of African descent, that might help you because there's a lot of books like that. But, I am. So, I'm going to speak from what I know. Um, this book, kind of like the everyday magic, but this is the part where there is something in me that is tied that the remnants of people who might have worked hoodoo or folk magic, right? That is still there because I know that was in my line, my ancestry line. I know it was. So there's a tie. I don't want to practice the way people represent hoodoo today. That's the most respectful way I could explain it. I don't think that they're wrong or something wrong with it. It's a me problem. It's me. I like this book because it ties into the concept of the wheel of the year. It ties into a more modern approach to working with nature, spirit and healing and all that other stuff, that we'll say folk magic kind of brings in with the bent on my understanding as an African American and without being religious, if that makes any sense, like Christian religious. Because that would turn me off immediately if I read that. Whenever I see that, as soon as I see a Bible verse, like I might give you one, maybe two, but anything more than that, you lost me. And practical approaches, because if anything, I'm a very practical minded witch. So, with that being said, this ties it all in for me. Also, not let me see, we're just over 200 pages here with definitions in the back or index. So it's not like a super, yeah, less than 250 pages of just like recipes and kind of the hands on practical pieces. The African Goddess books only go with Abiola's Oracle deck, or is it multi-factional? No, I use the cards independently of the book. I use her card. I actually use her cards for myself. Um, not at all. They don't have to go together, and you don't have to purchase the Oracle deck to work the book because the Oracle deck came after the book. They didn't come out at the same time and necessarily work together. But if you have them both, it could be really good to work them at the same time. It might be kind of boosted up a little bit more, some of the activities, but it's not necessary. No. This particular book, though, I think is like it. When you read a lot of these other books, it takes a European slant. Like it's very European based. To be Wiccan is European technically, right? Not saying that you can't, be not. You know what I'm saying. I'm not going to clarify this. Y'all know what I mean. Anyway, but this book helps for me work the way I work the practice of following the wheel of the year because she is breaking this down by seasons, basically the wheel of the year, summer, fall, winter, spring, and so forth. And there's recipes and there's, a modern grimoire for the natural home. Also, folk magic is me as a what I call cottage witch is folksy. It's folk magic oriented. This culminates all of that for me. There's a natural connection to all of this that I have, and I know it's coming from my bloodline. I know it is. So reading this, if you're like me and you are wanting to you want to be in touch with that and no one in your family is currently doing that because they're all whatever they don't but they do some things, they just don't call it that, but you'd like to kind of expand that and in your practice. I think this book is really good for that. And it speaks in a language that African Americans understand, as far as like her recipes and things like that. There's stuff for like Okay, so you ever read some of these books on natural magic and things like that, and they're talking about, oh, you can make this natural shampoo and you can enchant it, and I'll read that and I'm like, oh, that's great, but I'm looking at what you're putting in there, and I was like, that's not going to work on my hair. um, I don't think it was for, and I have locks. Well, like she's getting into that. Like the cover, she has braids or locks on here. She does have like a recipe, like several different recipes, magical recipes for, your hair. And it's like more folksy type stuff, like using henna. I used henna. Like that was part of my ritual, which was actual my hair rituals for my hair. So she talks about that sort of stuff. Genting styling ideas. Like it's that level of detail in this book that resonates with me as an African American, that is just not available to me in other books, that has great information, and everything is great until we get to the like those, like anything to do with like your grooming, or like natural botanicals and all that sort of stuff, like natural magic. um that's where I'm going to fall short. Or even when you're talking about like makeup on some level, because I have another book like beauty spells and things like that that I read. And I was like, I mean, I feel like you're writing this for somebody with pale skin. If you don't have pale skin, and that's fine, but that's not going to work for me. Even a shampoo, like she talks about like a shampoo base and stuff like that. Locks, a journey of personal transformation. Like, do you understanding how? For me, reading this book, getting to this section, I was darn near emotional because you just don't get that. Stephanie Rosebird, by the way, who wrote this book, I love most of her work that she does. She's an educated woman. She's extremely knowledgeable, and she has an approachable way of writing that I can connect with. So taking into account locks for me, an African American, how yes, there is a spiritual component to this, grooming with spirit, purpose, and patience, social and psychological implications. Like she gets into all of that in this section. Like that's important to my practice. In the same way, when I'm reading these books with a European focus for their reader, they're assuming is European. I can see the way they're lamenting over a certain practices, like, oh, brush your hair and speak this as you brush your hair and all that sort of stuff. Well, I'm not brushing my hair, right? Even when I was at Loose Natural, I was not brushing my hair. That would be disastrous. Just on a regular Tuesday night to start brushing my hair. I wasn't going for the fro. I wanted, defined curls. So this is going to destroy everything. So no. Um, just taking that into consideration, this is why I recommend this book. Obviously, if you're not African American, this might not make any sense. So I'm going to do another, some of the, there might be some repetition, but sort of like just kind of general. But I wanted to speak from my understanding and my recommendations based on me and my practice. That's where this came from. So, one last recap. African American Magic. This would be the last thing that I would read. Um, Maybe I should go in order we should read it. Let's start over. I want to read this first to build the foundation. I want to read this first to understand energy work and spell casting. I need to know how to record everything. Like, how do I write this down? How do I organize it? It's overwhelming. I've never had a grimoire before. What am I doing? Or if I did and I just never finished it and I struggled, I'm going to read this. Rituals, goddess, working more with feminine energy, because that's not something we are really, that's not the forefront in most modern, in popular religions, right? Working with feminine energy, understanding about the dark feminine and about our healing properties, about all that sort of stuff, how that is you are connected. She's going to give you a history lesson as well. There are activities that help you build ritual, which is important. All right, so this is great. Everything's great. I finished the book. I did all that. How do I do this every day? This is a very lighthearted, not overwhelming. And the way these other books get more deep, I think in this book, we're just kind of just taking a step like, so how do I do this every day? Like, okay, I want to be magical every day. This helps, but I'm still scared of spirit. I'm still scared. I'm low key afraid that, like, you talk about ancestor veneration, but like I don't want them to talk to me. I don't want to know they exist. I'm afraid, but I'm calling on them and I'm petitioning them to help me do better, and to get this money or to do something else or to help heal me. But don't actually talk to me. Don't make yourself known to me because I'm terrified of them. This is the book. Also, they have been talking to me. I know I'm not crazy. I'm open to it, but I don't know how to navigate all this. Like, I feel like they come to me when they want, but I don't know how to really call them and them answer. I am an African American woman. And all of this knowledge is awesome. How So I have a pagan idea of everyday approach. I'm open now to spirit. I'm not afraid like I used to be. I understand how to cast a spell and they're working. So Wheel of the Year, all that sort of stuff. I'm open to that now. This book talks about the Wheel of the Year, by the way, as I mentioned. This book talks about the very practical nature of modern African American living with magic. So it's, to me, the last book, because in order to work the spells and recipes or rituals that she's talking about, you kind of need to have that other knowledge. I mean, this can be a beginner book, but I think if you have the deeper understanding, you could approach this and you could really make this into something powerful, the stuff that she's talking about here, like death, release, and remembrance, release incense. Like, you need to be cool with that concept before you start working this sort of stuff, right? But once you have like a real foundation, this makes sense. This makes more sense. And also, you can, it'll be real, it'll work. I think that's a lot of people, it doesn't feel real. So it won't work. I got a video coming up this week. I already recorded about that. Um, my experience with not feeling like a real witch. So that's coming. Yeah, I already have it scheduled for Wednesday. So those are my book ranks, and I said I was going to go into detail about each one because I don't want to just say, oh, it's a good book for a beginner and just leave it there. You're like, why is it a good book? If I'm going to recommend 7 different books, I'm going to give you a logic behind it and the order I think you should read them in. Again, you can read them at the same time. That might resonate, but I like that order because to me, it's just each one is helping you expand and take notes. Let's get into the Seasons of the Witch Lammas Oracle deck. Okay, I am a collector. I didn't know this about myself, but apparently I am, because I have collected every one of these decks. I thought I owned this, so I didn't buy it ahead of time. And then I realized when I went to go pull it up this month that I did not, in fact, own this deck. And since I own all the other ones, how could I not buy this one? So, boom, I love this. So, Lorraine Anderson and Juliet Diaz, who I adore both from afar. I have I joined different, like, it was like a retreat, like a course type thing, some virtual thing. At least 2 separate occasions where I got to hear both of them speak. Lorraine Anderson, who I love her, and Juliet Diaz, and yes, I follow her on TikTok as well. Whenever she does post things, and I love the way they think. I like the way they exhibit their practice, and I love what they come up with. Colorful book. Bam. This is more a very inclusive deck. I'm going to tell you that right now. More so, I think each of the decks that they create have obviously it's different energy, different vibe because it's based on the Wheel of the Year, the different Sabbaths. So this is for Lammas or Lamas, however you want to say it. One of my cousin sisters always said the thing about these decks is in the previous ones they would it felt too abstract, the meaning on the cards. So I don't think she was alone in that thought, because some of it does. Like, there was like a poem. I don't know what I'm reading. I don't understand. I'm looking at the image. It's nothing. It's not really resonating with me. Some, I'm not gonna lie, some like the Yule deck was one of those. But you need the book to understand, what am I looking at? What am I supposed to feel from this? Like, before you can even conceptualize, it just feels very artsy and abstract. But this one, they listen. So let's look at this. I'm not gonna go through the whole thing, but I just want to show you some of the cards. So this is bakery. Llamas is is bread, milk, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, bread. Yeah, mostly bread, not milk. Well, no, isn't it milk too? Yeah, but bread. Take the time to diligently practice and refine your craft. Success will follow as you savor each little victory along the way. So when I see this card, I think of, you know, bread is it's a process. You have to come back to it. You have to wait for it to rise. You have to watch it. It's a whole thing. So when I look at this, take the time to diligently practice. I think being diligent, if I was pulling this card for myself and I asked a question, it was like, keep working diligently on this, keep working, pay attention, be mindful. The other one, bird feeder. Look at this one. So there's a lot going on in this card, a lot of pretty images. And this one is, every tiny action taken in the pursuit of growth is a powerful step in the right direction. So it's right here on the card. If I still felt like I need a deeper understanding of what are you talking about, I could pull open the book, which I'm going to show you when I get to that page. That's card 2. So full color. And then they give you keywords here: sustaining life. So I'm going to say this as you look at the card: sustaining life, making contributions, helping where you can, a bird feeder, right? So you're helping, you're contributing to the nourishment of the birds, in a practical sense. They give a deeper meaning and understanding about this as well. So if you were still lost, you can read a little bit more. It goes in a little bit more detail, but you see what I'm saying? Like, some of these cards, it's more straightforward than I think it had been in previous decks. This is bushels of apples, cemetery. Come on, cemetery. Call in the courage to embrace death as part of life's journey, to welcome new beginnings that bring growth and evolution. Very similar to the death card, I think. You can take with that. I'm going to skip ahead to corn. So this is the let spirit guide you and take meaningful action. Dreams become reality when combined with purposeful intent and action. I might not get that from this card, but from just the imagery. But you could read, if you want to delve in more, you can. And then there's Poppy. A pretty card. Poppy is pause for a moment to reset and reconnect with your soul. And then prayers to the earth. I love this card too. A lot going on in here. Beautiful. Become present with the blessings you already have. Make gratitude fill your heart. I can work with that. And then I'll just show one more card at the end. This is wheat and grains, card number 44. You reap what you sow. Good fortune is on its way. Okay. So beautiful deck. Illustrations are beautiful. I like the back as well. Nice cards. Love the box, the packaging. Honestly, I would have bought these cards regardless. The book, which I don't think I've ever talked about, does come with like Llamas card spreads. When you buy these cards, they usually give you a QR code, and you can, bonus material. And there's other things in there. I haven't done it for this one yet, but I have done it for like the Beltane cards, and it's some really good stuff in there, like ritual spells, illustrations. It's really nice if you want to add something to your magical record keeping, your book of shadows. So I suggest doing it. Don't ignore that. Listen, you pay money, get all your stuff. That's me. But yeah, this is. They have different spreads here that are very interesting. Vegetable garden spread, prayers to the earth spread, weeds for finding and healing wounds spread. So just some cool stuff. It's some cards, it's a book, and it's a little bit more than that if you use all the things that it's talking about. So these are the Llamas Oracle. I love the way these cards look. I love the imagery. I love the illustrations, and I think they have done a better job on the meanings on the cards and the messaging so that they are able to be used in a more practical sense. Although I'm okay with the previous cards, like it's the Yule cards specifically, which seem like they're like these little short poems on there, and I don't always my brain doesn't connect. And it might just be me and some of us others out there. And I don't describe myself as neurotypical or divergent because I've never been diagnosed. I don't know, but the many years that I've now been on TikTok and being around my daughter, I am starting to wonder about myself more and more every day on how I interpret things, what I've just called weird or different, um, or special. Maybe it's actually something more. Hey, I'm floating through life. I'm existing. I'm cool. We're in it. And if you are, hey, it works out. And if it doesn't, I don't really care. I'm gonna be me regardless. All right, so thank you. I was talking for a while. Let me get to my protein shake. It's starting to melt a little bit here. I made it real thick for this reason. So I'm gonna power through. No, it's not only you. I feel the same way too. Okay, thank you. All right, yeah. I'm just starting to feel like, wait, is there something? I listen, I have questioned like realistically, because yeah, I'm just gonna say I have questions. Is it enough that I'm going to go and get an official diagnosis? I don't think it's necessary. And I've heard other people say the same thing. Um, what, why? Like, okay, so once I have that information, what am I going to do with it other than, is it to label myself? Do I need to label myself? Why do I feel I need to have that as a label? Is it enough for me? And I've asked myself, is it enough for me that I've identified with, let's say, specifically like ADHD? Is it enough for me that I've identified with that? Is it enough for me that I've met other people who have official diagnosis, multiple people, and that there are a lot of similarities? And maybe, okay, so there you go. Then, especially like being on a spectrum, like, there are so many things that I have identified with. Like, how much of that is just me and just my personality versus, am I there somewhere? Am I just very high functioning with some things or not? I don't know. And here's the thing: since I don't know where to place it and what to do with it, I don't feel the need to seek it out. I don't think it's going to change me either way. I'm comfortable with just noticing the similarities, and if it was something that was affecting how I live my life, and yeah, if I was struggling, then maybe I would need that, because maybe there's some therapy or something that can help me navigate better, that I don't understand. Maybe I need to kind of like get out of my head that, hey, you don't have to follow things that way because that's never going to work for you. But I've sort of come to those conclusions on my own without needing a diagnosis or a label. Not saying that anyone else, I'm speaking for myself. I know that I'm someone who has to have more than one planner. I like to separate things. I like to have more than one magical book for record keeping, magical record keeping book, Grimoires and Book of Shadows. I like to dedicate it to each one. I don't want it all in one place. That is not convenient for me. That makes my brain hurt a little bit. Um, I I'm very particular about just certain things. The reason I like the Wheel of the Year, because it frames things for me in a way that I get to do all the different things that I want to do, you know, and it's almost like it's a space and time for me to start doing those things. And I want to do all the things at the same time, which also makes my brain hurt. So, but now I can kind of, it's like a platform to just put myself where I can be more witchy, and I can, be more spooky, the spooky side of my witchiness, the darker side as I approach Samhain. And then with Yule, I'm more festive, but with remembrance a little bit, still coming from the spooky season with the dead and still work with that energy, but at the same time being very appreciative that I am alive. And then as I approach the other aspects, seasons, the other seasons, and I start to think about, oh, I'm becoming more and I'm dressing less and going out more, and I'm loving that. And I'm more attuned with sensuality and sexuality and all that sort of stuff as I go into the warmer months. And then the cycle starts all over again. And the fertility and all that sort of stuff from spring and summer and all that. So, yeah. Um, the thing is, I want to do all of that at one time. And that I this makes it so I'm not like overwhelmed with all the things that I want to exhibit and explore and expand upon, mentally, and also very physically do these things. Otherwise, I would have Christmas, Halloween, year round, which is not bad, but I don't think that's good for my mental health. If I do, I think I might make myself crazy. So on that note, I'm going to wrap up here and share a little bit about me and my mind and how it works and why I like to separate things. I like to do things a certain way. But thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate you all. Yeah, I'm going to go and get into some stuff. I am definitely on the prowl. I have not gone to. I want to check out Dollar Tree for some Halloween stuff. The one that I live near, they had us very. I don't think they're done stocking. I like in the $5 area. I was looking for stuff. There was absolutely no Halloween stuff over there. This is like rinky dinky fall stuff, barely anything. So maybe they still need to restock. I mean, it is August, but still. Home Goods, I have not gone there. I need to go circle into TJ Maxx and Ross and all that sort of stuff as well. Oh, no problem, Leslie. Um, I need to I want to go look on the shelves and see what they have. I've been basically in Michael's and shopping my own supplies. Spirit Halloween. I did go to Spirit Halloween. So they're open. Some of them are open near me. Um, so yeah, I'm Halloween hunting for. I don't know what. I just know it when I see it. I'm not looking for like big things, but just some stuff. Because I have been decorating a lot this year, and it takes me longer to put everything up. So I'm glad I'm starting now. So yeah, I'm looking for some more things. I'm also looking to get things to just make part of my regular home decor, because this room that I'm sitting in, I'm ready to change it again. The way the layout has worked for me, I want to improve upon it. But again, that's how my mind thinks. I don't know. I don't like setting things a certain way and it stays that way forever. I don't like that. But I don't want anyone else to come in and change it. I have to change it. But anyway, and we'll stop here. Everybody enjoy your weekend. I'm gonna down my very healthy protein shake, get my my protein requirements in for the day, and then I'm gonna go conquer the world. All right, bye. Like, subscribe, share all that YouTube stuff. Thanks, bye. You too, Insky.